Hi, everybody. Welcome to class. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the most powerful words in your vocabulary. I have a few notes for what I want to talk about today, and I hope you've been doing beautiful lately. I have a new background that I've been working on. We got our teddies over there, and this is why I haven't posted for the past few days because putting all this together has been a lot of fun. It actually is fun. I'm gonna get some hanging plants. I'm gonna put up my sign that I used to have, which is "The world is yours" in the background again, and just decorate it really cute. But that's beside the point. Today, I'm gonna be talking about one of the most powerful words in your vocabulary, and that word is no. I'm going to go over just a few things before we get into this video so you don't waste your time watching something that you don't really vibe with or care to hear about. So what I want to talk about in this video, or what I'm going to talk about in this video, is a few preconditions to the word no, although there are no conditions on it. In all honesty, if you're in situations around people, feeling like you're in situations that make you uncomfortable, don't align with your beliefs or your values, you have every right to say no, to remove yourself, to disengage. However, I do want to talk about some of the preconditions that I have in regards to mindset and how that relates to your perception of your reality, and where sometimes you may be saying no because you're misperceiving. And it might be a moment where you need to extend trust. But again, like I said, that doesn't mean that you should put yourself into situations that make you uncomfortable. The other things I want to talk about are relating to that, especially in a relationship or in the formative stages of a relationship. We'll get into that. I'm going to go over the multitude of ways to say no and why I don't think you should use the word no to manipulate others, and how to say no from a very grounded, self-recognized, honoring yourself, respecting yourself type of way that translates in a way that is attractive and desirable. And I'm also going to go over what to do after you say no, and essentially help you get into a space where you don't give a fuck how people take it or how they may feel about it, because you're more concerned with honoring yourself, respecting yourself, loving yourself, and knowing that doing that is a highly attractive trait that is going to magnetize individuals towards you. All right. So that's what we're talking about today. I hope before we get into all that, I do want to say hi. Hi, all the new people on my channel. Thank you for being here. Thank you for all the new subscribers. I did put my workshops on sale. I think I'm going to do the sale for the rest of the year. I'm not doing any one-on-one coaching. However, I did put my workshops to $25. So if you go on my website, you'll see under the shop section, I have two workshops, one for general mindset, mindset mastery, and then one that is attuned towards relationships. Both those workshops come with a pretty extensive workbook, about 4 to 5 hours worth of content, a whole bunch of templates. I teach you how to make your own nightly recording, the importance of nervous system regulation. I give you some like kind of thought pyramids for how to handle different situations, what's worth a reaction, what's not worth a reaction. So if you're interested in that, I have that sale going to the end of the year, and I really wanted to make it an affordable price that people can gain access to life-changing information. So that's on my website. Okay. All right. So today, let's get into no, one of my favorite words. And I I feel some people are really afraid to say the word no because they think if they say no to what they don't want, that they're going to lose somebody. And in my opinion, that is such a misperception, because as a society as a large, what most people are finding attractive is individuals that are not necessarily easy to get. People that are telling them no in some form or fashion, are not giving them what they want right away. So if no were the problem, if saying the word no was the problem, and again, we're going to talk about the multitude of ways to say no, then why are so many people interested in creating relationships with people where they're not objectively getting a yes? Okay. So I want to say that there. And again, no is not a bad thing. Okay. And just because you get a no, or you get a rejection, or somebody is not, easy, okay, That's not a bad thing. In fact, in my opinion, I would much rather be with somebody that's not easy. I would much rather be with somebody that doesn't give things away easily or freely. I would much rather be with somebody where they honor, love, respect themselves to the point where they're more concerned about liking themselves than saying yes to things that they don't want to do in order to have other people like them. Okay, so let's think about that just as, just as a whole. There's nothing wrong with saying no. And in fact, it tends to be one of the most attractive things. Really think about that. Okay. If you got everything that you wanted extremely easy, okay, if this will, most of the content that I make is about relationships. If that was an easy thing, if getting this person were easy, okay, you wouldn't necessarily be that attracted to them. And it's not a bad thing. Okay. It's really good to know your worth, to have standards, to have values, to not jump into things quickly, to allow things to unfold. And I think if you can take that approach and replicate it for yourself, you're going to find a lot of success in your life. But let's get into this topic. Before we get into the multitude of ways to say no, I do want to talk about some kind of conditions that I was talking about earlier. And obviously, if you've been on my channel, I talk a lot about mindset. I have a lot of different affirmation recordings that you can use to help you shift your beliefs, to change in how you're identified. And ultimately, the whole point of all of the mindset work is so that you show up differently, you perceive things differently, you respond differently, you're able to mentally persist in a way that feels good to you. A part of that, again, like I was just saying, is your perception changes. So if you have a lot of limiting beliefs in love, or you've had a lot of negative experiences in relationships, what tends to happen is when you're in your current day-to-day life right now, you will perceive what is going on through the lens of your previous experiences, which leads to a multitude of false and negative assumptions that you may have a tendency to react to. With all of that taken into context, before I even talk about the word no, I need to talk about that condition, which is you need to take the time to get into a version of yourself that is no longer holding on to your previous experiences, emotional baggage, projecting negative assumptions, assuming the worst in others, and become fulfilled within yourself if you really want to create a sustainable relationship. By the time you go through that process, you should notice that your perception and the way you're able to handle things is not being altered or skewed by your previous experiences. And there's a multitude of ways that you can go about making that change within yourself. Me personally, on my channel, I talk about nervous system regulation. So doing things like breath work, exercise, designing a good routine for your day that helps you begin to really release any sort of suppressed emotions, not be triggered as easily, and also adjusting your beliefs. I have nightly recordings that you can use. I also make daily meditations. You don't have to use my content, but you can use it as a guide to either create your own meditations, create your own nightly recordings. But essentially for me, the fastest way that I've been able to create this change in my life is to adjust my beliefs, adjust my identity, which is synonymous, right? And also stabilize my nervous system and create a daily routine that feels good, that allows me to sustain this change that I've made within myself until that becomes my new normal. Then I don't necessarily need to do all the meditations or the nightly recordings. I don't need to do the breath work or all the nervous system regulation. Then they become tools if I find myself getting triggered, anxious, worried, having tons of intrusive thoughts. So that is my first precondition here, is it's going to be very difficult to know when to use the word no if everything you're perceiving is a byproduct or being skewed by your previous experiences and disconnecting you from reality and projecting negative expectations, assumptions that are going to cloud your judgment and cause you to say no to things that may not necessarily have needed a no, which leads me into relationships. One thing that I see people struggle with a bit online, okay, and I've been here, okay, when I'm saying these things, don't think I'm just trying to call you out, make you feel bad. But One thing that I do see some people struggle with is when you like somebody, when you're feeling somebody, when you're vibing with somebody, you're hanging out with them a lot, but there's no commitment yet. You have a tendency to already act like you are in a relationship, which brings up jealousy, insecurity, a desire to control, maybe a desire to get that commitment quickly, a sense of urgency because you're liking this person and maybe they're not giving you exactly what you want in this moment. It's progressing in a positive direction, but you're already in your mind in a relationship with them and you're already seeing them as somebody that is committed to you when in reality they're not. You guys are hanging out, you're having a good time. In all honesty, they could talk to whoever they want to talk to, they could do whatever they want to do. And it's not for you to tell them what they can do, what they can't do, who they should hang out with, how frequently they have to text you, all these things, right? And even in a relationship, it's not really your place to tell somebody what they can or cannot do. But if you don't have the best beliefs about yourself, if you're not able to trust individuals in general, if you don't believe in the progression of a relationship, if you don't see yourself as somebody that gets commitment and knows that before the commitment comes in, then you will have a higher tendency to form these mental perceptions as though you're already in the relationship and want to react to things or say no to things or place boundaries where it's inappropriate because the commitment's not there. You're actually not even in a relationship with this person. They don't have to text you all the time. They don't have to see you all the time. They don't have to prioritize you necessarily. You're still in the formative stages of a relationship. And that is why I wanted to set that precondition in terms of your belief system, because in order to create a relationship, you're going to need to trust. You're going to need to trust in the progression. You're going to need to trust that this person wants to see you. You're going to need to trust that this person is going to commit to you. You're going to need to trust that they do care about you. And you're going to need to extend that trust until that actually becomes your experience. But if you're so hooked up in your mind, trying to figure out, do they like you? Do they want to be with you? Are they going to commit to you? Are they talking to other people? And you're getting jealous and reacting to things or wanting to say no to things to get them to commit to you or give you what you want, you're going to find that that approach doesn't really work in your favor, which is why in this video later on, I'm going to talk about not using the word no to manipulate. All right. That's the only kind of precondition that I want to put here in terms of no. And I know I'm just talking about relationships, but other than that, again, like I was saying at the beginning, if you're uncomfortable, if you don't like something, if you are not vibing with something, you can absolutely say no and remove yourself. So just because you want to create a desired result does not mean that you have to put yourself through hell in order to create that result. There are plenty of people that, especially in relationships, if they don't like what an individual is doing, they'll just remove themselves completely, ghost them, as savage as that sounds, and that person will do anything to be with them. They'll find a way to communicate with them. They'll find a way to reach out to them. They'll find a way to show that they really care about this person and want to be with them. So don't think that you have to put yourself into situations that you don't actually like because you want a desired outcome. It all comes, again, down to your identity. In my opinion, I prefer to take the more trusting route. And I really understand in the formative stages of a relationship, it doesn't really matter what the person is doing in their free time. It's none of my business. But if you feel like you're being used, if you feel like somebody's taking advantage of you, if you feel like they're just using you for sex, etc., and that's not just coming from previous experiences, insecurities, doubts, or fears, there's objective proof to this, then you don't have to keep yourself in that situation. Okay, you can remove yourself and know, either revalue yourself and be like, fuck this shit, I'm too good for this, or just know that this person is going to show up properly for you and do what feels better to you, which goes into the tons of ways in which you can say no. Now, I'm going to empower you, but also teach you to be strategic with your no's. I understand, and this is something that I've been talking about a lot recently, especially when it comes to people prioritizing another person. You probably have seen it on my Instagram. I've done a few clips from my membership side where I was talking about this. When it comes to personal relationships or interactions with other people, I want you to go into it not with negative assumptions or projecting past experiences, expecting the worst, but I do want you to go into it knowing that people know what they're doing. Okay. And again, especially in the formative stages of a relationship, you don't really know a person. Okay. So there's not enough commitment or consistency there or a bond there for you to necessarily expect very much, at least in my opinion. Okay. But in relationships that are a little bit more developed, okay, the way in which you say no can be important. And especially when you find yourself in very negative patterns. So the first way to say no, which is very obvious, we're all human, this is not a new subject that I'm talking about here, is your verbal no. And we're going to talk about after you say no and how to handle that. I do want to talk about no, though, when you're saying it verbally. To me, actions speak a lot louder than words. However, I don't think healthy communication is a bad thing. I tend to take a more observant approach to my reality. So I only feel the need to say no or speak up if I notice something is a pattern. I take into consideration that everybody here is a human. Maybe somebody's having a bad day. Maybe, something is undesirable in, their life or whatever it may be, that whatever they're doing right now may not actually be a character trait that they possess, but maybe just a mishap or a byproduct of not being in the best mood, having tons of stressors, whatever it may be. However, if I notice that it becomes a pattern, then you're going to get a verbal no. And that is as simple as I'm talking about it here. Now, however, I will say, I do find it important to give a little bit of supporting reason and awareness surrounding why you're saying no. And whenever we want to say no to somebody, the best way that I find to do that is to stay grounded in reality. Point out the facts of the situation. You did this. You can't argue with that. You did this. We can't argue with that. This is the reality of the situation. It's not okay with me. I'm not here to make you feel bad. I'm not going to judge you. However, no, you cannot do that. That is as simple as it should be. Okay. Now, if you have communicated a verbal no, and the thing is continuing to occur, which I know people tend to kind of struggle with that more in like more developed relationships, which is why I was talking about the formative stages of a relationship just a few minutes ago, then a verbal no is not enough. Okay, especially because I know, there's quite a few people on my channel where they have tried the communication route, the healthy communication. Hey, I don't like this. No, that's not okay for me. Do you understand? Yeah, I understand. Okay, cool. And then boom, happens again. This is where you have two other options. Okay, you have a nonverbal no, and then you have the removal of your presence. A nonverbal no, in my opinion, is just exactly what it sounds like. With your body language in that situation, you're just not engaging with it. You're mentally denying it and not giving it any energy and operating above what is going on. And I've talked about this on my channel a few times, more than a few times, okay, which is you want to set a new example. So if you don't like something and you have tried saying no and it's not getting anywhere, then at a certain point, you're just going to take the leadership role that is necessary and stop engaging with the pattern and go straight to setting a new example. And yes, sometimes that does just require you being the bigger person and realizing that you want to get over this hump in this situation. You don't want to feed energy into it anymore. You're not willing to fight about it. You don't feel the need to express a no anymore. And you're just going to set a new example. And you can do that in any way that you desire. If you don't feel like that is working though, okay, this is where your presence becomes very powerful. And I want to talk about this also impaired with manipulation, because I'm not talking about stonewalling people or completely disengaging with individuals when they say something that you don't like. And so you're removing your attention to manipulate them into giving you what you want. What I'm talking about is if you have said no, if you have no longer given something energy, if you're setting a new example and it's still not changing and you're mentally persisting in it changing, okay, but it's still not changing, then the next best option is to just completely remove your presence, and not in a petty way, not in a way where it's like, well, you're not doing what I want. I've tried communicating this with you. I've tried setting a new example. So now I'm going to remove myself because fuck you. You can do that if you want. It's not my suggestion. Okay. My approach on that would be to just literally remove your presence without explaining why. And this is why I said earlier too, people know what they are doing. Okay, people know what they are doing. They know when they're not prioritizing you. They know when they could be doing better. They know when they're fucking up. They know when what they're doing is unacceptable. And at a certain point, they're going to see how far they can get away with it until you completely just show like, this is not okay. Outside of just verbally communicating it and setting a new example, you actually physically remove yourself and show that, hey, I haven't been joking. My no's are serious. I'm not accepting this in my life. This is what I get out of my experiences. If you're not going to respect me, I'm going to put myself in environments that do respect me. And you need to do that shamelessly. Okay, let's go back to people knowing what they're doing now. Okay, because I have, again, been talking about this quite a bit on my membership side, and I've posted videos about this on my Instagram as well, too. In the instance of somebody not prioritizing you, all right, we all know what we're doing each day. So you're aware when somebody's texting you, when you could respond, when you couldn't respond. You know when you are not living up to good expectations or following through or showing up for individuals the way that they deserve to be shown up for, right? You know that. So other people know that too. When you find yourself, and this is kind of more for the formative stages of a relationship, although it can apply to, marriages and long-term relationships where you've been with somebody for a while, okay? If somebody is not prioritizing you or doing the things that they should be doing, it is not necessarily your job to teach them to do those things, to coach them into doing those things, to raise them into doing those things, to step in as a second parent. Yes, relationships are filled with growth. Yes, you learn from one another, but you don't want to go in the direction of enabling. And this is why I said earlier too, sometimes, or at least in my opinion, actions speak louder than words. I really will only give a verbal no, again, if I see a pattern, but I'm only going to do that once, maybe twice. Okay. After that, I'm going to go in the direction of nonverbal or presence. Okay. Because again, you don't need to ask somebody to treat you properly. You don't need to ask somebody to show up for you. You don't need to ask somebody to love you or prioritize you. And at a certain point, you have to realize that the very act of asking for that and trying to reason with why somebody should prioritize you is disrespectful and dishonoring to yourself. And it is a much better option to spend your time actually prioritizing yourself, removing yourself, and putting yourself in environments with people, places, or things that do prioritize you properly. That sets the example that that is the treatment that you deserve. Now, when I was talking about nonverbal no's, right, setting the example, let's say you're in a marriage, right? And you don't really necessarily have the option to put yourself in new environments or around people that respect you differently or prioritize you differently because you don't want to like fuck up your own marriage, right? That comes down into your daily routine, right? So if you're not prioritizing me, you're not showing up for me properly, I'm going to make sure I prioritize things in my daily routine that help me feel that way. Okay, it doesn't mean I'm going to necessarily go out on dates with other people or start talking to a whole bunch of different people. There's just a different way in which I'm going to organize myself to where I'm not waiting for you anymore. I'm prioritizing myself now the way that you should be prioritizing me. And that nonverbal way of operating is going to translate for you. Okay. And the formative stages of a relationship, though, if somebody is not prioritizing you, a part of that there too is you don't have the commitment yet. They technically don't have to prioritize you, right? So you have to see what is worth saying no to and where you need to extend trust, right? Just because you like somebody, just because you're vibing with them, just because you guys are hanging out quite a bit, doesn't mean they owe you anything. So if they start showing up in a way that you don't like, it doesn't matter because you're not in a relationship with them. And that's where you need to pivot and adjust and stay self-recognized, self-respecting, self-loving, and set the example that you're not willing to play this game. If you're not going to text me, if you're not going to prioritize me, if you don't want to hang out with me, I'm not waiting for you. Yes, I like you. You're really cool. You're hot, whatever it may be. But I'm still single too. And if you're not going to show up for me properly, I have plenty of things that I can do with my time. And if I want to be with you, I'm going to know that it's going to progress, but it's not my job to tell you to like me, text me, spend time with me, prioritize me over other individuals. I'm going to trust that you're going to do that. And I'm going to remain self-identified and knowing that I receive commitment. I am prioritized in relationships. I have plenty of options. I'm able to create the relationship that I desire. Okay. So I know I'm talking about a few different things here. We're bouncing around from like formative stages to marriages to long-term relationships. You have to take into consideration how this applies to you and feel empowered to say no in a way that feels good to you, that also leads you towards the outcome that you desire. Now, let's talk about after you say no, okay? I love the word no. I think it is such an attractive word. It really is an attractive word, okay? If you are coming from a place of self-love, self-respect, your perception's not skewed, you realize that saying no, either verbally, non-verbally, or with your presence is necessary in order to honor, love, and respect yourself. And it's also what the version of you would be doing that is able to create the solution that you desire, then you really need to take the stance of not giving a fuck about how anybody feels about it. And I also sense that this is where a lot of people struggle because they feel guilty saying no, or they're afraid to lose something if they say no. There's nothing to lose. Okay. Let's make that very clear. There's nothing to lose. If somebody's not showing up properly for you, if they're not prioritizing you, if they're not listening to you, if they're not honoring your boundaries, if they're not respecting the no's that you are giving them, there is nothing to lose. There's nothing to feel bad about. You are allowed to say no. You are allowed to express what you don't like. And you can also take on a belief system too that knows that that is very attractive, that you deserve to be with somebody that's willing to do anything to be with you. You know, it's reasonable, okay? And you deserve to be somebody that does that without giving you pushback, without making you feel guilty, that honors you, that recognizes that you don't like something and adjusts themselves to the best of their ability while also honoring themselves to appease both of you. That is why there's nothing to feel guilty about. And that's actually very necessary because, again, you're the one creating your relationships. So if you don't know your worth, if you're not confident in yourself, if you're not able to say no, you're constantly overextending yourself, saying yes to things that you don't want to do, giving everybody a pass because you don't want to create problems, then nobody's going to prioritize you. Nobody's really going to give a fuck about your feelings or what is important to you because you have normalized the experience of it not really mattering. So at the beginning, if you start saying no and people don't like it, or you feel a little bit guilty, realize that there's going to be a transition period. However, you need to honor your no's and you need to be in an identity that knows that it is attractive to know when to say no, to remove yourself, or to operate in a new way, and that you deserve somebody to still love you, show up, and make the effort to rectify the situation. If you're actually in that identity, you're not going to feel bad or go back on the no's that you're saying, because you're going to see the overarching theme here, which is you're respecting yourself and you're setting an example that's necessary to create the healthy relationship that you desire. And somebody that really cares about you, even though they may not like the no at first, they're going to respect you, they're going to honor you, they're going to find it attractive, and over time, they're going to adjust themselves. That is why it's very important to not go back on your no's. If you say no, if you remove yourself, you don't break that until you see the healthy change that is sustained, or you get the apology, whatever it is. You don't worry about it though, okay? That's not your job. Your job is to honor yourself, to respect yourself, and to set a good example for yourself and a good example for others. They will follow. That's all you need to know, all right? So that's pretty much all I wanted to say on the word no, okay? Get comfortable with it. No, 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 okay? And again, this is not to manipulate people. So as long as you're, in my opinion, too, again, as long as you're coming from a place of self-love, self-respect, honoring yourself, you've taken a reasonable approach, maybe you've tried to give a verbal no, it hasn't been honored, and you start to go in these other directions of nonverbal no's or removing your presence, that should all be done as an act of honoring yourself. If you're going in the direction of giving no's to manipulate people, to make them feel bad, to corner them, whatever it may be, you're going to find that's not a very sustainable approach. If you are coming from the place of honoring yourself, it's going to be highly attractive, and other individuals are going to see that and know that as well too. So just like how I said, people know what they're doing, okay? They're also aware of you as well too. So if you're trying to manipulate people, they're going to eventually catch on. It's going to eventually come to light. So don't do things to manipulate things from other people. Do it from a place of remaining self-honoring, self-loving, staying strong in your identity and your values and your beliefs, and trust that identifying and operating in that way is going to lead you to the solutions that you desire, and say no fearlessly whenever you need to. Okay, I love you all so much. I hope you have a beautiful day, and I'll see you all later. Bye.